Here's a problem for this time of year. The leaves are still in the trees, but it's cold. It's really cold. And everything, my camper, my survival camper, my motorhome are still in full shade. The sun has not yet even begun to reach anything. It's 11:15 in the morning. I'm sitting in freezing chill inside, and a very bad problem right now is that the solar panels are in full shade until about 11 o'clock in the morning, and I am not getting much sunlight at all right now. So this is the worst time of year for my solar because of the trees here in the meadow. And then I'm only getting 4 or 5 hours of sunlight because the sun passes behind this tree here very early in the morning, or in the afternoon. So I have less warmth, less energy. It's a tough time. Once the leaves are gone, I will have sunlight on the RV at 7 a.m. If I remember right from last year, I think the sun starts to peak over the mountain around 7, maybe a little bit later. But I'll start to get some solar heat once these leaves drop, and more solar power. So it's just an awkward time right now with this shorter days, but yet the green on the trees. I got a box from Telcom Techie. So what do we have here? For Droid, oh wow. This is an extended battery for Droid Bionic and a back cover. Wow. No more problems with this phone going out on me. Looks like there's 2 of them here. That's the extended battery. Nice. Well, I'm going to be using that today. Oh, that's great. I can't believe when I'm on vacation and I take my Droid, the thing is dead by lunchtime, and that's not using it. That's on standby. Wow, thank you. And we have here a headlight that looks like it could be in a science fiction movie. It looks sort of cool, like Aliens. Nice. No more blind spots on the videos. Oh, nice rechargeable batteries. And what do we have here? Smart charger for AA's, AAA's, for up to 8 batteries. Wow. Nice. Now that I have the AC power, I can use that. Very nice. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Telcom Techie. That's going to improve my life greatly here, and it's going to improve the amount of videos and time I can spend on the internet, because that phone was driving me insane. Thank you. now I'm living entirely off my garden. It's growing faster than I can eat it. I've pretty much had my fill of cherry tomatoes, which I can show you in a few minutes here. And my mom is teaching me creative and new ways to eat beans and squash, which I have a lot of now too. Still have a few cucumbers growing, but mostly peas and beans of various types are growing in abundance, and my tomatoes are producing a lot of fruit, which I'll show you right now. I have to be careful because there are melon vines in the grass here now. I'm going to have to dig these out so I don't step on them later, so I can distinguish them when I'm walking through here. I have tiny little melons still attempting to grow. Look at all the cherries. They're just growing fast. And it's still producing fruit. Look at the baby cherries growing. Look at this. They're still growing. This is really nice. And the birds are eating well too, because I keep feeding them the any that I don't get in time. I just picked these. I don't know if I can see. There you go. That's awkward lighting here. I've got some little melons. The vines had died, so I picked what was there. I don't know if these little ones will be edible or not. I've got some squash, one zucchini. This plant is still growing actually. Let's see if I can get the light in there. The zucchini's still growing. I've got some bunch of yellow squash, some miniature melons. Again, the vine died, so I don't know what'll be left of that. Some corn. I learned something about the corn this year. I knew it, but they didn't grow together. Not all the corn seeds grew, but you need to plant corn in big clumps so that they will fertilize themselves. Here, the stalks actually fertilize each other, and this one didn't have a chance at all. Some turned out okay, but it's a pretty pitiful corn harvest this year. Just a few tomatoes. I'm picking tomatoes every day. Bunch of beans and peas. There's yellow beans, green beans, purple beans, and what are these called? Those sweet peas. I've got some beets. Sadly, the chipmunks discovered that beets are very good, and if they dig them up, they can eat them. So that's all I got from my beet harvest, sadly. There's a day's worth of cherry tomatoes, so not too bad for a day of harvesting. The squash, that's it. That's all I'm going to have. I have a few more that I have previously picked that's inside the old camper, but there's the last of the squash. But anyway, the tomatoes are still growing well. The beans and peas are growing, and the cherry tomatoes are growing well. Let me show you what I spent the last hour and a half doing here. You'll notice the vines are very much thinned out. What I've done is taken out all the dead growth, and here I've taken out all the dead stuff because my onions, yeah, it's my bad, I goofed on this one. It was an experiment, but the onions didn't grow. They never had any light, and they're just now starting to, right here. So I'm going to allow the sunlight to filter down and maybe give the onions a chance to grow this season. The peppers were eaten by chipmunks. I never had any yield. They did bear fruit, but I never got to get any. They're still trying to produce some more, but I think it might be too late. And over here, the garlic isn't trying yet, but there are some onions coming up, some tomatoes. Funny enough, tomatoes are growing back up from one that I let rot on the ground, and I'll give them a chance. They might actually still have time to produce fruit if the weather doesn't stay cold like it has been this year. It's been an off year. But normally we see growing up until November if you can keep the occasional blizzard from damaging your crops. Like we had 2 years ago in October, an early blizzard. I still have tomatoes growing. I don't know if you can see that. Little tomatoes are still coming. So the tomato plants are still bearing fruit. I think this is a sort of wild pepper. I'm not sure. It grew up as tall as I am almost. And I left it to give it a chance and see what it'll do. But that grew up in my garden. Now there's a purple fruit. I don't know actually. It looks almost like a tomato fruit. It's very odd, but it grew up in my tomatoes and peppers. So I'm not sure what that is. I thought I'd give it a chance. I need to dig up my potatoes in this bed. These are the ones that I had heaped up and then they died. And I'll probably find a ton of potatoes down in here. Actually, there's an old vine. Yeah, look here. There's some purple, tiny ones. I can probably dig through here and find a mess of potatoes yet. If they grew. Because this sadly was the bunch that I topped off with soil. And yeah, they didn't grow up. See, there's some tiny little potatoes in there. But I'll dig this up and see what I can find. Even baby potatoes are good for something. Big rock. A lot of rocks. But I might get lucky and find some potatoes in here somewhere, maybe. I'm hoping. It smells rich, very rich soil. I have to dig down quite a ways to get to the potatoes though, because I had buried this deep. It's wet down there. Well, anyway, I'll do that properly later. There's a few babies. Might be something in here. In here, there'll definitely be some potatoes, because I already harvested some out of this bed previously. They're smallish, but these were small potatoes that I planted in here. So I'm going to leave these though, because the best way to store your potatoes is in the dirt, and my dirt happens to be fluffy and good insulation. So I think that's the best place to store them until I'm ready to eat potatoes. See, that's just a little corner I'm digging through with my hand, just sifting through here. I probably got a bunch. Probably got a whole mess of them. Anyway, there's a few potatoes just from that little spot. And I know there's more down straight in there. I felt some more. So anyway, the garden's still growing. Cherries are the best. These are the survival essentials seeds that I had planted. And they are really doing well. Right now I'm preparing a sort of a garden soup. This is all fresh from my own garden. I've got some squash, onions, tomatoes. What else is in here? I'm going to put some potatoes in here. I might put in some beans. My mom told me I could throw some beans into the soup. She gave me these ideas before she left when she saw all my food. And when I asked how am I going to eat all this stuff, just throw it all together. It's basically what they did in the old days too. They had a pot hanging over the fire, and whatever was brought in for the day was tossed into the pot. then it just kept on going. They might have meat, they might have some vegetables, they might have some wild foraged foods. But whatever they got, they tossed into the pot. Basically what I'm doing. Now I'll cook this down, and then I'll have dinner for a couple nights. Keep that in the fridge with the lid on, and you just reheat it each day, and you've got yourself a very nice meal. Give you a little close-up. That's pretty. Now I don't have room for the potatoes until it cooks down a little, but when it does, I'm adding some potatoes and maybe some beans, and have a really nice vegetable stew. There's my garden stew. All fresh garden food I grew myself. Very nice. I'm gonna let that simmer for a while until it's all soft